This is Leadership in Action, and I'm Casey Cheshire. Join me as we delve deep into the passions, expertise, and experiences of Boston area innovators. Sponsored by the Boston chapter of the Entrepreneurs Organization. This is Leadership in Action. There it is. We are on fire. We are going. This is moving. The train has left the station. I am stoked for today's guest. He is an entrepreneur. He's an attorney, a speaker, an instructor, a podcaster, and a friend, real estate and estate law pro, principal at Stiles Law, director of special operations at Secure Title, and assistant regional manager at Dunder Mifflin. Mark Stiles, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here, Casey.
Absolutely, man. A little bit of law, a little bit of paper sales.
That's right. That's right. You must have seen my Facebook profile.
100%, man. Yeah, you got to live a little, right? Got to have some fun.
It's funny how few people pick up on that.
100%. You know, I even got T-shirts that say Dunder Mifflin Nashua division, because that's where I live.
Oh,
so
cool.
we have Nashua shirts for the field day. But I digress. Enough about me. I want to pass this over to you. We've got your expertise here for just a little bit of time. So I want to go ahead and start the show off the way we start every show by asking you that question. What is a common misconception about leadership or being an entrepreneur?
You know, it's a great question, Casey, and I've heard a lot of awesome answers from your guests. But what I would like to point out to all of your listeners is that not all attorneys are jerks. Not all attorneys are obstructionists. And although most of us are technicians, not so much entrepreneurial as I am, but they're technicians. But that being said, you get to choose. You get to choose your attorney, and you want to match that attorney with your personality type, because depending on what you're doing, you may be with that person for a long time. And a lot of times people get steamrolled into a situation and they're working with somebody that they do not mix well with. And that's not a good relationship, especially for the entrepreneurs who are consistently working with someone. And what I always encourage people to do is get a solid referral, somebody who's in your seat, who's done what you've done and has needed the services that you need, to get that solid referral and connect with that person, but interview that person. You know, do you connect? You know, and one of the things I really want to point out is that all attorneys are not the same, right? Everybody is niche now. There are no general practitioners. So the folks that when you were starting up and set up your LLC, they are not the attorney, more than likely, that's going to be helping you sell your business. Maybe if it's a small mom and pop, but if your, private equity is coming in or M&A, you're going to need a specialist, an M&A specialist. Same as if, you're buying a home. That's not going to be the same person that's going to dissolve your marriage if that's what's happening. And,
It's interesting that they're so niche now, but I want to hold on to, I want to get to that in a second. Just real quick, back to your original smash, which I love. We haven't talked about this. Not all attorneys are jerks. How does this happen? Why is this such a common perception?
Because most of what, first of all, was seen on TV, but also in reality, a lot of attorneys are litigators. And when there's a litigator, there's a side, right? And it's not conciliatory. It is adversarial. And when it's adversarial, that sometimes bleeds into the human, right? So they live their job and their job becomes them. So they do become salty and adversarial and difficult to be around and challenging personality wise. Now, again, they're technicians. For the most part, attorneys are technicians. So they have a job, they have a puzzle, they're going to finish the puzzle, they're going to fix it. But there are a lot of amazing human beings in this profession. And with a little bit of due diligence, a little bit of solid referrals, you can find them, and they are amazing partners for you. So I'm assuming many of your listeners are listening and saying, "Oh, I got the perfect attorney. I love my attorney." That is what we're talking about. So what I want to smash is the people who hesitate, right? So they're going to maybe do it yourself to avoid the aggravation of dealing with an attorney or or dealing with the perceived fees associated with having an attorney do things for you. They are so necessary, so purposeful, but do your due diligence, interview, connect, own that process, right? You don't have to be thrown into a process. Own the process of who you're going to be partnering with, because again, they're going to help protect you more than anything, but they're going to help build your business. So they become a partner with you if you choose correctly.
Yeah. And it sounds like the time to do that is before you actually need it.
It's always better to be proactive, right? That's one of our radio slogans. It's always better to be proactive, so you're not forced to be reactive, playing on Stephen Covey's 7 habits. Habit number 1, be proactive. But yes, before you need it. But most often that's where the rubber hits the road, right? That's where the stigma comes from, is that people are being reactive and they're desperate and they grab the life vest and they're like, they feel as though maybe they were taken advantage of, or they weren't valued as a customer. And being proactive, getting out in front of that scenario, obviously, you know, that benefits in the long run.
Totally. Now, I have something to throw at you because I've in my limited experience, I've seen different kinds, and I've always kind of wanted what I didn't have. I've worked with some attorneys who, when the shit hits the fan, they're like, everyone stay calm. Let's see what we can do. Let's try to, avoid conflict. Let's, I don't say not win, but let's see if we can all win together. And then sometimes this has always been sort of the opposing side. I've felt the insanity, like someone just literally came out of a mental institution. They were sending us the craziest shit ever. And I was always in my mind thinking, like, I would just love to have one of those like pit bulls on my team for once and not be on the receiving end where my attorney's like, all right, well, they sound a little crazy, but let's be like, I kind of want someone to fight for me too. But at the
Depending
same
on
time,
what
I feel, yeah, go ahead.
depending on what you need, right? If you're
Yeah.
in litigation, you need a pit bull. But what I always hedge on is to make sure that you're not working with someone that, and this, you find this a lot in family law, in
Mm.
divorce, where they may stir something up unnecessarily, right? To create billables. Maybe a civil litigation, there's a battle between two companies, and they they live on time, right? So the more time that they can bill, the more money they make. So sometimes that can be a bad thing for the consumer, right? Where if you have, and this is where you want to interview people in advance, if you have that conciliatory mindset, that settlement mindset, that yes, not everyone's going to be happy, but we're all going to be equally unhappy, maybe. That's the definition of a good settlement. Both parties are equally unhappy.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. But how unhappy are you going to be? Right. Because if it's like any good negotiation. If someone wins, then it's not a good result, because it simply doesn't work in the grand scheme of things. And folks need to work together. And, when those pit bulls come out, you got to fight fire with fire. There's no question about it. But if you can get to a settlement, then you win, because when litigation drags out, the only winners are the attorneys.
Yeah. See, and that's where I was kind of going with that. Sometimes I get the sense that, those calmer, like settler type folks probably have a point that this is just a massive distraction, especially for the smaller claims. Like, look, this is just a distraction. What are you going to take this? You're going to take this to a trial? Like, no. Is it worth 100 grand to you? No. So it's best just to move on. But sometimes you just want to not get taken advantage of by some crazy, mouthy attorney. One of these days, I'm just gonna allocate money so that when that request comes in, I'm like, all right, let's go to court. Let's go to actual trial. Let's have a jury trial. I hope you're ready to pay for it.
Yeah, but you have to be careful with that, right? Especially as a business owner, an
Yeah.
individual, anything, right? That expense associated with that is so unnecessary sometimes.
Right.
And sometimes you feel like you're caving in, right? By settling, you're conceding early, or maybe you feel like the other person got over on you. But at the end of the day, if you could eliminate that emotional drag, because that's what litigation becomes, right? All of a sudden, ding dong, there's the sheriff, serving you with another deposition, another couple of days that we've got to go into the conference room and answer these mundane questions. If you can eliminate that as a business owner, I mean, you're cutting costs, right? And at the end of the day, that's where your bottom line comes from. So, we always encourage conciliatory and settlement and, smiles, as opposed to the litigation. It's yes, necessary in certain circumstances, but the quicker you can get to a settlement, the better.
Yeah. That's tough. That's
Mm.
tough, right? Because aren't you then kinda eating something at that point?
You feel like it, but if
Yeah.
you play it out, you're probably biting your arm off at your wrist versus your elbow, right?
Yeah.
So the costs add up, the time, and what people don't really factor in is the energy drain,
Yeah.
right? Litigation will have you up at night staring at the ceiling. What's next? Am I going to get through this? Is this going to cripple my business? And, these threats that get thrown around, I mean, they throw nuclear bombs. There's
Totally.
scorched earth that goes on in litigation, which is why I don't practice in it, by the way. I'm specifically a transactional person for that reason, because I can't stomach it. I don't like it. It doesn't fit in my personality type. But there are litigators that I've dealt with, because obviously, in the practice, you're going to deal with litigators that are really professional settlement attorneys. And they do it in a way that is not weak. It's
Mm.
with strength and it's with honor, where they say, they lay it out like, this is what's going to happen. I suggest we find the middle, you know?
Yeah. So and this is helpful, right? Because you're hearing there's different kinds that, to your point, they're not all jerks, and you need to find the one that fits the right style. And it sounds like, the ones that are recommending this type of approach probably a little smarter, a little wiser, or maybe not. They don't need that extra 4-hour billable. They're all set. They're not in it for that extra couple. Yeah.
And they see the futility in it.
Right. Right.
They see the futility. They want to close the file. They want to move on to something more positive. And, because what a lot of folks are doing is they need to protect you, right? So if you do a good job with the transaction in advance, then, you know, you'll avoid a lot of litigation. So a lot of those folks do both and they move on and let's do something that is enjoyable. And we're helping these people build their business. But again, there's a need for everything. And when the litigation hits, you wanna arm yourself. But
Yeah.
always, always, always be focused on settlement.
Hmm.
Always. Even if you want a pound of flesh, it is an emotional trigger that you want to avoid.
Mhm. I've always found too that, if you try to play the crazy game with people, even if you're pretending to be crazy, there are really crazy people who will continue that escalation. And they're, and so, oh, I'm gonna have a crazy response back at them. And then they like triple down on the crazy. You're like, oh wow, this really is a crazy person. I should probably watch out.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
because they're gonna pull you into the mud,
Yeah.
the only ones that like to play in the mud are the pigs, so be careful getting into that mud, because it can go on for a very, very long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Now you had mentioned that everyone has a niche now. It's not these general practices are a thing of the past, and you really want to find someone with a specialty in a particular area. Should you be collecting a whole harem of attorneys? Do you need a whole gaggle in
You
your
know
back pocket?
That's a very good question. Now, there are law firms that have different practices within. The bigger firms have multiple practice areas, and they have specialists within. So, it's an interesting question because we talk about the consumer a lot in my practice, and we always say that the consumer needs to surround themselves with a team, a wealth table, if you will, or a core group of professionals where they have, a financial advisor, a CPA, they have, a title attorney, they have the real estate agent, the mortgage professional, insurance agent, where they can count on those people. Depending on your business, that's the same thing. A lot of businesses will have an in-house attorney who's going to identify who they are. We like to be the in-house attorney for the consumer. I mean, we could refer solid human beings in any situation. But you're right. The old days of Mark Stiles attorney law on Main Street in downtown does everything. It doesn't happen anymore. There's too much risk. It's too fast moving now, too. I mean, with the advent of the internet, and where everything used to take 3 or 4 days. You would mail people things. You had the time to do the research. You had the time to work through these different facets. But now everything moves so quickly, you really have to niche. And otherwise, you're risking committing malpractice because, you can't know it all. You really cannot.
And, um, so, who do you recommend? Are there a certain number of attorneys that should you have coverage on? Like, make sure you have a family, make sure you have an estate, or you just kind of go with the situation. You like have a business attorney and then ask for referrals.
Well, you definitely want to have somebody that can point you in the right direction for when you need it. Again, depending on your business, you're going to want to have a business attorney who can help you as things come up, right? Transactions, contracts, relationships, collection, what have you. As an individual, you absolutely want to have an estate planning attorney, a real estate attorney. But again, depending on do you need a family law attorney? Not unless you need a family law attorney, but
Mm,
you want to make sure that one of your relationships can introduce you to one that works for you, right? Because again, if you want to scorch earth in a divorce situation, there are plenty of them out there that'll do it and just drag your partner through the mud. Same with any form of litigation. But if you are introduced to somebody that is like-minded as you, then you're good to go. But to answer your question, do you need a gaggle, a team of attorneys? Depending on the size of your company, having an in-house general counsel is the way to go because that person becomes, the general contractor, if you will. They're the ones who they'll handle certain things in the space, hopefully they're very, very well versed in your industry. But when other things are needed, they are the ones who are going to pull those people. That's your referral source is your in-house attorney.
okay.
But again, they can't do everything. A lot of their job is to manage and organize and work with the quote subcontractors, right? The other attorneys.
Right. And know when to pull someone in,
Yeah.
you know, for different parts. Okay. And then a couple of things you also mentioned, you kept mentioning that a lot of attorneys are technicians. Is there something to that? Should we be that we should be aware of? What do you mean by that?
Well, so when you're talking to an entrepreneur who's talking to a technician, right? So I use the term technician. It's from the E Myth, right?
Yeah.
You have
Good
the
book.
finder, minder, grinder. They're the grinder. They're the ones who would take the puzzle and piece it together. And when you're dealing with a finder, sometimes, you need to tread cautiously because those personality types, whether it's Myers-Briggs or DISC or whatever it is that you use, more than likely you're going to be on opposite ends of that spectrum. So, the communication is important. And again, you want to lead that process, right? Because again, they're the servant, you're the master when it comes to a relationship with your attorney, right? Because you're the client. You're the one who should be owning that process and how it goes. But, how that communication goes is very important. And, when you're dealing with a technician and somebody else is not a technician, then you're going to inevitably have communication breakdowns. And that's where a lot of, the misconceptions come from too, is that they simply aren't as communicative as, your fellow entrepreneurs are.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes sense. E-Myth is a good book, isn't it? That's
Awesome.
classic.
Awesome. One of my favorites.
Yeah. Quick question around contracts. I get the sense that, just an ounce of effort and fine tune work on a contract can really save you from all the craziness we were just talking about with litigation and the threats and all that, because it was just clearly spelled out. Do you have a particular approach to those, a particular style? And related to that, do you like that sort of common English, like readable contract, or is it like, nope, let's make it as legal as possible? Is there a balance between the two? What's your take?
Yeah. So the great question. And again, it always depends on what we're talking about, right? But having the time spent in advance, right? Being proactive with those contracts is always beneficial. A misplaced comma can cause significant problems.
Really? Even a
Yeah.
comma?
Yeah. But to answer your question, so a lot of the contracts that we're working on is your form purchase and sale agreement. And my style is fairness and equity, right? Both parties want the same thing, right? So we don't need an obstructionist. A buyer wants to buy, a seller wants to sell. They have come to terms. Let's paper it up as fairly as possible. Let's not try to get over on somebody. Let's not
Right.
try to, slip one in.
Yeah.
Let's bring these parties together and consummate what their goal is, which is to, transact the sale of a home or a building or what have you. I like it simple, but regardless, people tend not to read them. So we're reviewing them with folks, regardless of how simplistic and clear the language is and the size of the font. It doesn't matter. But I have seen in the business context, the simplified bulleted approach. I personally like it. Some of the colleagues that I have who are more granular will want more deep. And they're probably right when it comes to the business context of things, because you don't want to leave any stone unturned,
Mm.
because you don't want to end up in a litigious situation. And you don't want the client, you don't want to be doing too much do it yourself, right? There are some standard adhesive contracts that, you're working with a vendor or vendee that this is what we do. We don't make any modifications. You may want to have that reviewed to help understand and explain, right, what you're signing. But take the time to read them, because there can be some punitive things in that document that you weren't aware of.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. Uh, Man, makes sense. A lot of great stuff here. My next question is a bit of a step to a different direction. We've already talked about the E Myth. Are there any books, like most recommended books, that you'd love to put a shout out
Yeah,
to?
I mentioned Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. I'm
Yep.
sure most people have read that one. But with respect to real estate, the one that I recommend all the time to people is Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And that really triggered my desire to invest in real estate, which was one of the most important things I've done for my net worth. And it really helped understand the process of how it works and the flow of money, really the psychology of money. I don't think there's a better book that discusses psychology of money and passive income than Rich Dad Poor Dad. So I recommend that to all my real estate referral partners, our agents and lenders, as well as clients who are asking those questions, because we represent a lot of real estate investors also. And it's a really valuable book. I would highly recommend that one.
Yeah, cool book. Actually, when I first heard about it, I read it in Barnes and Noble. Thanks, guys. And I actually couldn't even afford to buy it, so I just sort of like read it in the store. It's
Cool.
kind of a fun but very impactful book. I totally agree. Um, Real estate. I know I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of CEOs that haven't quite done that, but a lot of our peer group and EO and other places are always talking about it. Do you have a recommended? I read this book, but then how do you get into it? maybe you've got some extra capital from your investments and you want to get into that, but it just seems like it's its own world and you're now the noob in that world. How do you get into that?
Great question. It depends on what asset class you want to get it into, right? You're looking to get into office or flex or, Amazon 1 mile to the final location, or are you looking to buy a two family? And either way, it's always the same. You got to start, right? One of the, one of the things I like to say all the time is, when people ask, when's the best time to buy real estate? I'm like, well, the best time to buy real estate is 10 years ago. What? Oh, all right. I get it. Well, what's the second best time? Right now, because it is such an awesome, tangible asset that, can generate income depending on how you buy it and typically appreciates in value. But to get involved, you want to arm yourself with a team, right? Real estate attorney, real estate agent who is familiar with real estate investment properties, and a mortgage professional. I never recommend people paying cash. Even in this scarce marketplace, money is so cheap. It's a great idea to utilize that and leverage that, and work with a mortgage professional that understands the investment properties and how they're valued, based on rents and all that, and be prepared for a second job because it's not super passive. Unless you hire management, which I do recommend, and it will bite into your bottom line. But having a good manager who is screening tenants, and again, we're talking about the residential concept at
Mm.
this point, because I think that's the one that a lot of folks have appetites for. They're screening your tenants and they're taking those phone calls, because one of the things that derail people from the dream of being a real estate investor is, well, I don't want to get that phone call at midnight that the toilet is clogged. And everybody says the same thing, but it really never happens. Most often, if you treat your tenant like a customer, they're going to respect your time. And if their toilet clogs at midnight, they're going to call you at 8:30 in the morning. They're not going to call you at midnight. But if you have a manager, then they're going to call them. And then that person will hire the plumber and send you the invoice and cost of doing business. And hopefully you've analyzed the numbers correctly, that you're still cash flowing positive. But there's so much you can do when you become a real estate investor. I always encourage people to do it, but it's not for everybody. It's a risky feeling, but yet it's not a risky proposition.
What do you mean by that?
If you do it correctly, you're going to be fine.
Mm.
you know, Keeping in mind, 2006, 2007, you weren't doing it correctly, right? You were leveraging off of subprime,
Leveraged. Yeah, yeah.
overvalued,
Yeah.
over leveraged, not prepared, not, prepared for any downside. Here you have to have skin in the game. The values aren't going to drop like they did. Even if there's a correction in the real estate market, again, we're talking first quarter 2022 here. Even if interest rates spike up, even if, the demand starts to temper and there's a correction, it's nothing like what we're going to see, because there's still a massive demand for real estate, but there's also a massive amount um, of funding inside the real estate, right? Because of the crash, there was a requirement that a significant amount of money had to be invested into each deal, where, negative amounts of money were invested into deals back in '06, '07.
Yeah.
So I encourage people to do it. We have a YouTube channel. It's a direct to consumer type of
Oh, cool.
FAQ. Yeah. At Stiles Law. And we have 3 or 4 videos about real estate investing, specifically the do's, the don'ts. And at the end of the day, the conclusion always is, if you want to do it, you have to start. You simply have to start.
Right. You can research it all day, but what's the best? Is there a best asset class property to start with?
You know, Depending on your situation, I believe the best asset class is for somebody who needs a place to live, to buy a multifamily. So if you
Because
do,
you're in it and you've got at least one tenant paying
yeah,
the mortgage.
you're living in one and you're collecting rent in another, so you're hedging, and it's a really good way to get started. But right now, the way the demand is, I mean, all asset classes are really, really strong. Single families, condos, two, three, fours. And then you go into the commercial space, which is a whole nother world where, you can get involved in private equity and REITs and investments, trusts and such. But when you're talking about, creating housing for people, um, there's a huge demand for it right now. And, you're going to get the rents. You're not going to have vacancies. And if you do a good job screening the human beings and treat them well, then they're going to pay down your mortgage and give you that passive income that you're looking for.
Nice. Nice. Living the dream.
Living the dream.
Well, Mark, my next question really is like, who are you? How have you acquired all this information? Can you take me back in time to like little Mark days? Did you always know you're gonna be an attorney and
Nope.
rock in the property world?
Nope. Didn't know that at all. I went to our state university at Amherst,
Okay.
UMass, and was in the sport management department. I
No
thought,
kidding.
yeah, before Jerry Maguire, I was going to be Jerry Maguire. It was, I remember my junior year of high school, I did a report on Bob Wolf. He represented Carl Yastrzemski and Larry Bird. And that was really something that I was interested in. And then I graduated and went on to law school, right? Thinking that that was going to be necessary to be an agent. Started the Sport Law Foundation at the law school and, created all of that. But then when I graduated, I realized there's a requirement of funding, a large amount of funding. And I had been, destitute for the last 7 years and was going to continue to be destitute. So funding to obtain these clients was going to be challenging. So I jumped into criminal law. That was my first quote passion. And I started out on my own. So the true entrepreneurial spirit, graduated, went cross country. I'm sorry, graduated, took the bar exam, went cross country, came back with my passing certificate and realized not employable, whether
Really?
whether it was because of me or because they didn't want me. I chose not to have a boss. So I said, you know what, I'm going to do this. So I called as I was doing, I was doing my cross country venturing. I was calling attorneys who were offering office space. So I was calling them up and saying, okay, hey, you're looking for $600 a month for this office. What if I were to pay you $200 a month and do, 2 hours a week on your stuff? And no, okay, that's fine. Do you know anybody who might be interested in this? Call, boom, 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 passed along and found my way to a gentleman, really awesome guy who had recently unsuccessfully ran for state senate. So I'm like,
Hmm.
this is going to be great. This is going to be awesome. He's, going to be influential. There'll be people in and out of here. There'll be plenty of business. So I went in and with him and he's like, yeah, I'm totally down with it. We have an overflow of business. We'll keep you alive. And within a month, he said, hey, here are the keys. Here's the bill for the phone. I'm going to work for the district attorney's office. I'm like, oh, all right, cool. All right, let's do it. So market wasn't great. It was 1995. But so a lot of attorneys were trying to get on the lawyer of the day list for criminal law.
Hmm.
And being a young buck, I was at the end of the line, but I continued to show up day after day, sitting in their office saying, I'm going to be good at this. I'm going to be great at this. I want to do this. Let me in. And they let me in. And I did that for a couple of years.
Wait, what is that? Lawyer of the day?
Yeah, lawyer of the day. So when you go into a courthouse and somebody's charged with a crime and they've been interviewed as destitute, then the state will pay for their legal defense because everybody needs to have the
Is it like a
opportunity.
court ordered or a court appointed defender
Court
kind of thing?
appointed. That's exactly what it is.
Okay.
A court appointed attorney. So, I'd sit there. I'd be the lawyer of the day. I remember Hingham District Court. Tuesdays, I'd be sitting in first session, and someone would be arraigned for drinking and driving (OUI) or assault and battery at a bar down the road or what have you. Small district court stuff. And Attorney Stiles, would you like to introduce yourself and interview this client? We're gonna appoint him to you. So you would have this, lit, a bunch of files going at once, and you work your way through it, right? And you got a lot of trials. We had a lot of trials. I had some really, really exciting jury trials as a very young person. I mean, I was 25 years old at the time, 26 years old. And I did a lot of juvenile work, which was really rewarding. I really enjoyed that. But I met a real estate mortgage professional, and he introduced me to the concept of doing real estate closings. And that was very appealing, especially when he pulled out the calculator and showed me how much I could make on each transaction. Now, it's not a tremendous amount of money, but again,
Right.
27 years old at this time, barely making it, paying rent and doing what I'm doing. And I remember being on the telephone, doing the billing. You used to have to bill to the state through the telephone. So I did 12 hours on this file. Oh yeah, it was classic stuff. This was back in 1997, 98. And then I remember, straddling, right? So you're trying to do both, right? And I would go to the payphone and check my messages at the office in between the session. And I remember this was a very busy loan officer. So, he kept us very busy. And I would hear the voicemail, why is my attorney in court? Because
Yeah.
closing attorneys, they shan't be in court, because if they're in court, then they're not taking care of the business that, the real estate professionals need them to. So, you know, I ended up getting rid of the adult cases. I hung on to the juvenile because, again, it was rewarding and I enjoyed it.
What
Um,
was so rewarding about it for you?
I was doing good. I really felt as though the way they set up the juvenile court in Massachusetts, um, it, it, it's it's done really well because, again, it's behind closed doors. It's confidential, and the goal is, how do we make this person a good citizen by the time they're an adult? And the judges were totally engaged with it. So, we're working through, probation, through community services, and doing things and talking to them. And I'm sharing books with them and trying to help understand what, their home domain is like and what's happening with them, and seeing if, how we can make their future a little better. But then I had a scenario where they were pushing me a little bit to do the more serious crimes. And I remember one specific one that it really rattled me. And I was like, this is it. I'm pulling the plug. This isn't going to be for me, that definitely not the adults. And there's going to be other people that can do this and help these juveniles, because this specific crime was, it hit me pretty hard. So I
But
went
it's
all
like
into Mhm.
the adults, they should have known better, and so it's almost like trying to reduce their punishment maybe, but then with the kids, for the most part, they just needed a dad or a big brother, and
coach.
they
Yeah.
needed someone to have their back,
Yeah.
I'm sure most of them kind of like, well, hopefully could straighten themselves out with this experience, but I'm sure you got some that were just, like, really messed up, and then
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, psychologist at this point, like
Well, they were involved, right?
yeah.
So, the adults, you're right. That wore off quick, right? The folks that would come back and back and back, and they simply weren't learning their lesson. And like you said, they should have known better, but they chose to continue. Where the kids, it was a little bit different, right? It's depending on their upbringing and all of that. And,
Yeah.
you feel as though you were actually helping, and you could see
Yeah.
it. And, you would see their parents later on, and, Joey's doing great. And, we owe a lot to you, so it was rewarding. But, it didn't matter the age. Some of the crimes were pretty gnarly.
Yeah.
So we went full into real estate. No matter how many people told me, don't put all your eggs in one basket. We did, and we built it up, and, into the early 2000s. And, we've had a good run, and I have an amazing team currently. I've always had a good team, but right now I have an amazing team. And without them, we don't do what we do, which is, deliver value. We deliver an experience for people as opposed to simply a transaction. And we're sharing that through our sister company, Securititle, where we're seeing a lot of folks that want to do real estate, but having a tough time with the barrier to entry based on the fact that we had a mortgage meltdown. right? And
Mhm.
a lot of regulations came in and a lot of barriers went up. So somebody like myself wouldn't have had as easy a pass to get into real estate in 1998 as you would in 2018. So we are sharing our back office, which is Securititle, which is who our entity is in both New Hampshire and Florida for title and escrow also. But in here in Massachusetts, we offer that service. So somebody who doesn't have the pen, right? So the title insurance pen, which is the
Mhm.
requirement to actually handle closings on behalf of a lender, we open our doors to them and say, listen, you have the relationships, you have the referral partners who are sending you business, work with the client. And when that need is arise, send it to us and we'll do the back office work and we'll send it back to you and you'll still look like the hero. So that's been working out really well as well. So we're having some fun with that, sharing our team out there.
That's powerful. That's great. You're able to address multiple areas and really help people. Uh, Curious though, do you ever miss that helping of those kids?
The juveniles I do, but we do a lot of charitable stuff here as a
Yeah, kind
business.
of get that same.
And
Yeah.
I've coached. I never stopped
Nice.
coaching. I was coaching back then, even without children in the inner city. And I coach, in our local towns and you get that. It's not, these folks are not as in jams, but you know what? Every zip code, every neighborhood has issues. So, this suburban neighborhood that we may be in, there's still, kids with issues and, to be able to coach and help them. To answer your question, yes, I do. And, someday maybe in the backside of the career, maybe I'll go back and do a little of that again because it was very rewarding.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, my next question for you is a little bit of a hypothetical question because I may or may not have a time machine up here in Nashua, New Hampshire. Let's say I do. It's in the backyard, cover the tarp. You come up, you come visit, we get some beers, we go in the backyard, and you get to use this time machine. And it goes back in time, but it's particular kind of time it goes back to. So it goes back to you right after that sports management undergrad, right? You just got that, you're fresh eyed, right out of school, haven't hit law school yet, and you get to meet that version of you, and you can talk to yourself. You won't mess with the space time continuum like the Flash does. You'll be all set, right? What kind of things do you tell yourself? What kind of advice, recommendations?
Great question. And we kind of talked about it. Um, buy more real estate. You know, that at the end of the day, when you get 5, 10 grand, put it to work. Get yourself more real estate because, that was 25, almost 30 years ago. Those mortgages would be paid off.
Yeah.
Those properties would probably have been exchanged through a 1031 exchange and maximized from a little condo or a two family to a, 8, 12, maybe a flex industrial office building, what have you. But that is what I would recommend. And that's what I'm encouraging my kids to do: buy real estate.
All right. There it is. Man, that is good stuff. Would young Mark listen to you?
Well, it was scary, right? So it's still scary for a lot of people. Um, I think he would have. I think he would. He did because once he read Rich Dad Poor Dad, it was quick.
It was kind
The
of, yeah,
the
it clicked.
switch was quick. So yeah. So I guess read that book earlier to get that switch flipped.
100%. This is great, man. Well, how about put a shout out. You have your own podcast, right?
I
What's it
do.
called? Where can people find it?
So it's called Elements of Styles. So my last name,
Nice.
Stiles. So it's a play on that Strunk and White grammar book of Elements of Style.
Right.
Very different model than most podcasts. It's a business development. So I bring in my referral partners to add value to their business. The idea is giving them a 30-minute commercial, give them the opportunity to put their story out there, kind of like what you're doing, you know.
Right.
But I have no desire to be Joe Rogan, although it would be fun and
Yeah.
and news a lot right now. But mine is, I tell folks when we start, I'm looking at an acronym. I put it up there on the screen. Wait, why am I talking? Right? Because I have a tendency to jump in and interrupt and take things down a different path. But I always tell them, at the end of the day, 95% of the people, the listeners are going to hear you. 5% will hear me, right? That content is going to be you talking. So it may get awkward when I'm not saying anything, but I'm going to be there shaking my head. I'm going to be encouraging you to keep going because we want to put that out to your database. We want to put it out to your social media we want to put it in your signature email line that says, here's my story, and we're going to tell it in a way that's going to allow people who it lands on their ears when they're on the treadmill or in the trails or what have you. And you're sleeping and they're getting to know you, love you, and trust you. So they're going to call you and it's going to make that initial introduction, that initial meeting really smooth because they're going to know you. And it might feel weird, when you first encounter a person who's heard your story and you're talking to them. But it makes things really great. So yeah, so the podcast has been going great. It gives me the opportunity to spend an hour with people who I don't get to see all that much. I mean, we do some business together, some it's pure prospecting, right? So we're in a prospecting and hey, have you ever thought about being on a podcast? So then I'm an hour with them and they're really, they're sharing, our symbol is the share symbol from the computer,
Oh,
share
cool.
your story, give us a nugget of value and tell everybody a little bit about it. And it's been going well. It's fun. The people enjoy it. And I think it definitely strengthens the relationship that I have with those people.
Yeah. How long have you been doing that?
Recorded our 60th episode recently.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So a little bit over a year. Put our attempt is to drop one every Tuesday.
Every
And,
Tuesday. Nice.
every Tuesday.
Gotta have that
And
regular momentum. Yeah.
so in order to do that, as you know, you got to do two a week, right? To give yourself some time. So
Make sure. Yeah.
I do. I meet with 2 or 3 people on a Tuesday, and then one of the edited and final versions drop on a Tuesday, and we put it out everywhere. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, um, Stitcher, anywhere people consume podcasts, they can find elements of Styles. And there's some really good ones, that you could see a theme, right? But I always encourage people go through the catalog. If you're looking for a professional, there's a cool one there, and you're going to connect with one. And then I've got a couple. One of my mentors is on there, and it went really deep. I thought we were going to talk about NFTs, and all of a sudden we're talking about him and his journey to go see all of his extended family and ask them, "What's it all about? What's it all about?" And it's really, really quite entertaining. Good guy, Gary Bloom. Check that one out.
Gary Bloom. Okay. Yeah. Most podcasts don't go past like one and then 10 episodes. So
Yeah,
success.
that's one thing we've tried to maintain a level of consistency. Same with the YouTube. Every week, I'm going down into the studio and doing a 2-minute FAQ. I always get the team around Wednesday. I'm like, folks, I don't know what to talk about today. What are we doing? What are we going to do? So, and it's just really simple FAQ. Somebody has a question about, deeding their property into trust, or what is a 1031 exchange or what have you. And again, we maintain a level of consistency, whether people are watching, it's funny. You get somebody who's like, I saw your video. I'm like, oh yeah. What'd you think? Well, I saw it. I didn't actually watch it, but it's that consistency that, front of mind. And we're doing some radio spots too, where we have a local radio. We do commercials, but every Friday morning I go in and do what's called Feel Good Friday. Feel Good Friday with attorney Mark Stiles of Stiles Law. And the segment is, we built it around COVID. So it started in COVID when people were really, bumming out. And I thought, I started advertising. I'm like, can I do a segment? And, it started out as, 3, 4 minutes. And now every week it's like 17 minutes. And I have a really cool relationship. We're good with the chemistry with the DJ. And, so the first part of it is, what are you feeling good about? And usually I'm pumping a charity or I'm pumping something that's happening locally or within the business and the team. And then we do a frequently asked question. So a lot of times that question that the listener has called in and asked, right, quote unquote, or uh, translated as I've given him the softball to ask me, becomes that same video on the weekend. So we have that level of consistency and economies of scale, if you will. But
Yeah.
it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun. The consumer direct is really challenging to get to people. Because most of our business is referral partners. We call them referral partners. So real estate professionals, both real estate agents, brokers, and mortgage lenders is where the vast majority of our business comes from. But every once in a while, I heard you on the radio. I really liked what I'm looking to sell my house, or I'm looking to do an estate plan or what have you. But to get to that end consumer is challenging. So we're doing the best we can.
Yeah, I heard you on that EO Boston podcast. Man,
Yeah, exactly.
so good on that one.
Well, he made me sound good. That Casey, he's a real good host.
Best host I've ever heard,
Right.
totally. Present company accepted, of course.
Well, we're gonna have to do a pod swap. We'll get you on ours.
We'll have to have a pod battle, more like.
No, we're going back to the beginning.
Let's go.
We're going back to the beginning of the conversation. No battles. We're all in this together. It's abundancy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, perfect time. Where can people connect with you? Throw out, you've mentioned different things, but throw out all the social platforms,
Yeah.
all the URLs, websites, all that.
Yeah, great. I appreciate that. So the YouTube, if you go onto the interweb and you dial up YouTube, Stiles Law, and it's Stiles Law Original. We've got over 200 videos on there. There's a couple other Stiles Law nationwide, but they're 1, 2, 7 videos. We have our brand on there, and we're close to 1,000 subscribers right now.
Wow.
Yeah, with 200 and something videos on there. That's a great way because I always give the call to action at the end of those videos too. But our website, which we're refining, but it is stiles-law.com. It's a great way to get in touch with us. Phone is also a great way. We have a concierge that puts you in touch with the right folks and can set it up a call with me, 781-319-1900. And Casey, like yourself, I love Calendly. So Calendly/M Stiles, STILES. I've already time blocked it. I've already got the time set aside.
That is clever, my friend. Hopping right off a podcast, right onto a Calendly. You got some meetings booked right after a podcast.
It's great. It's great. And you know what? You've already got the time blocked. So if you don't have a call scheduled, you're making calls, right? So I love Calendly. I was saying back in 2020, it was my favorite app of the year. And now it still is because people love it. And in my business, a lot of times you're dealing with partners, maybe it's husband, wife, or business folks. And you have a conversation with one person and they're supposed to translate it to the other one. And then you end up having that conversation. With Calendly, they're both ready, and I say it right in my, the profile of my Calendly. When you click it, it's like, I will call you. So it's really clear, and they're sitting there with the purchase and sale agreement or whatever it is right there in front of them, ready with their questions and ready to go. And it's super efficient, so efficient. And they love it because they get to pick the time, right? They get to own the process, coming back full circle on that as well.
Yeah, man. Good stuff. Lots of resources. I'm going to be checking out the YouTube channel,
Cool.
getting some insights on real estate, because I hear that advice, man. Get some property, get some things that you can pick up with your bare hands and you can plant some flowers on. That's your place. It's your land.
Yeah. Tangible assets. That's where I think people need to be going these days. But yeah, if you go to the YouTube channel, in the search bar, you can search real estate investor or real estate investing. And I think 4 or 5 videos pop up. If you search estate planning, 5 to 10 videos pop up, and which is really cool. I didn't realize that until a couple months ago, that you could actually search within our our page there.
Yeah, that is cool. It makes it like its own little unique, searchable database, knowledge
Yeah.
base. Yeah.
And I'm, like anything, right? A lot of times, people will they'll have a campaign where they'll do 1, 2, 10 videos and it doesn't work and they get frustrated and they stop. And, you know, this is like 4 years into it that we've been doing it and we're getting calls and there's traction
Yeah.
behind it. I saw your video, I Googled you or I Googled something and it popped up, because Google and YouTube are together as one. But, had I stopped at episode 5 or video number 5, it would do nothing. And that's the sustainability. And that's what we're pushing. It's, and it's challenging sometimes. Like, oh, do I want to do this today? No, yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Man. We got one more subscriber on YouTube, and I'm sure a couple
Cool.
hundred more as well as
Awesome.
listeners start hearing that. Great resource, great direction on that. Thanks again for coming on here, man. This is great. I'm so glad we were able to do this.
Yeah, man. I really appreciate you inviting me to do this. I'm sure I'm a little bit different than many of your guests, but
Only cooler.
Yeah, well, I'm sure I'm doubting that many lawyers are on here because very few
You're
lawyers
the only one.
define
Don't need any more.
entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Well, I do want your listeners to take me up on this. If they are in search of a lawyer, call me, right? Because, again, we're real estate and estate planning, but you may need a referral for something else. Depending on what type of person you're looking for, I can absolutely make an introduction. It'll save you time. I mean, no one's going to the yellow pages anymore. You're going to go on Google and you maybe look at some reviews or what have you. But maybe you don't have that referral. Maybe somebody hasn't been in your shoes. Jump on a call with me. Let's talk it through and I'll make that introduction. I would love to do that for your people.
Yeah. Love that. Love that. What was the number again?
781-319-1900, also known as calendly.com/mstiles.
Awesome. And what we'll do is we'll put all this information for those listening in the show notes. So you can
Cool.
click on that phone number or that Calendly link or whatever, the YouTube link, and go get those resources.
I love it.
So, man, this has been great. For those people listening, if you learned something, and I freaking know you did, because I literally have front and back notes over here, a full page. So I've learned something. I mean, we talked all about some great concepts here. Technicians, the E-Myth, choosing an attorney that fits your style and not settling and being comfortable finding the right ones and asking for referrals like Mark was just talking about. And by all means, getting in those resources and scratching that real estate itch because it will pay off. And before you know it, 10 years will fly by and you'll be glad that you did 10 years.
That's right. That's right.
So, man, Mark, thanks again, man. This has been
Thank you, Casey. I really appreciate it.
all right, everyone. This has been another really cool episode of Leadership in Action. We'll catch you all next time. Leadership in Action is sponsored by the Boston chapter of the Entrepreneurs Organization. As the world's only peer-to-peer network exclusively for entrepreneurs, EO helps transform the lives of those who transform the world.